Welcome to the 1 year anniversary celebration of Drink and Chat. And it's also a historic day in Depeche Mode terms with Violator being released in the US and the warehouse incident, which several of us were there. It was a crazy day. We will have footage, unseen footage later on this afternoon or evening, wherever you are. So, anyway, just thank you all for joining us. We have the amazing cast from Spirits in the Forest, and we're gonna do a bit of a Q&A with them. Jenna's our great guest host here, who will be doing all the questions. And if you have questions for the cast, please put them in the chat. You can either direct them to everyone or directly to me, and I'll forward them to Jenna. So thank you everyone for your attendance, and Jenna, off to you.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for the anniversary of the Drink and Chat. I mean, a year ago, would we have thought it would be a year that we would be still in our houses, still in drink and chats and all that? So I think a lot has happened since then, and it feels like probably like 5 years ago for some of us. It feels like just yesterday in other ways. And we have Cristian, Liz, and Daniel here, so I'd like to find out from them all what they've been up to during quarantine times and what they've learned and all that good stuff. And so I'll start it off here. I'm just going to go in the order I see you guys on the screen. So Cristian, do you want to talk about what you've been up to in the past year after being evacuated from Siberia?
Well, and hello to everybody. Thank you for joining. Actually, the evacuation was for me was in Mongolia, and it was I nearly missed my meeting with Indra because of the strict Mongolian quarantine. And in the end, I was lucky to be able to leave because Mongolia had a very strict quarantine. They cut all the flights. And luckily, I was able to find a Turkish airline to take me out to Romania via Istanbul. And other than that, nothing really, like everybody, only traveling around here in Romania and waiting for this thing to finish, get the vaccine, and the world to turn to its normal course. Well, the new normal, actually.
Liz, what have you been up to?
I'm drinking coffee. I would say that. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see your faces. It's only like 9 a.m. here in LA. So, I mean, it's been interesting. It's been a strange year because we all went from that feeling of not knowing what exactly was going to happen or what was in store. And now, you know, in hindsight, you think about like the things that, remember that point in the quarantine where everybody was like, and here's the time that you should write the like great novel or whatever, and you're lazy if you're not, you've got this time locked down and all of that. And then we get to this point where it's like you just want to hug each other and be together and tell your friends that you love them face to face instead of, you know, over Zoom. Yeah, not so much change for me work wise, just because I worked from home anyway. So that didn't change a lot. It was weird having my oldest son, who had gone off to college in Chicago, have to come home. So he's back here, and it was very surreal here in Los Angeles, actually. Just you know, the period when the streets were just completely empty and there was no traffic and everyone looked scared of each other. I'm sure that's something that's really relatable to everybody. But I just been, you know, and then there was the point where we couldn't go out to the parks anymore. We couldn't go up on like Mount Hollywood, and that's something that I do a couple times a week. So that was really strange. And I was glad when we could do that again. But just doing a lot of, you know, hiking, you know, trying to like stay in touch with my friends as much as possible, missing going to like things like the Depeche Mode convention, you know, just trying to stay healthy, stay alive. And I feel like that's the most important thing, you know, that any of us could do, not just for ourselves, but for our loved ones as well, you know. So I didn't want to be that person who, you know, gave the virus to, maybe was like an asymptomatic carrier and then gave the virus to someone else. So, yeah.
Daniel?
Well, 1 year from lockdown. Um, so social distance is just the new name for my normal life anyway. But yeah, it's been particularly, I think it's been heavy on everyone, even if you don't go out very often or anything. But um, here in Berlin, we've had more or less, I'd say, an easy time. I think now that there's a curfew, but not that affects me very much. But we could still go out to parks and everything. Just keep a distance from other people. Um, Still, I prefer to be on the safe side, and I go out the least possible. And to think that, yeah, the last thing I did that was normal was the Berlin Film Festival from last year. It's a miracle that it even happened. Um, I think the first cases in Germany were starting to pop up during the festival. So the festival this year it was partially online, and maybe they hope to do another part of it, the traditional way, maybe June, July. But yeah, it would have been in time of the year I would be going from one place to another to see several movies during the course of 1 week, and it was last year, not so much this year. Um, Everyone in my family is safe and okay, although I did lose some more distant relatives and acquaintances.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Um, but other than that, everyone's doing fine. Um, Everyone here is doing fine as well. And that's it.
How do you say
1
social
year.
in German?
Good question.
Oh, you don't know it. Like, I thought that would just be something that rolls off the tongue at this point.
We don't actually say social distance.
You say, get the hell away from me?
Yeah, no, I think that the translation would be soziale Entfernung, but I think they just say to keep 1.5 meters, 2 meters distance from each other. I think that's what I see the most on lines, waiting on the line on the post office. There's always this a sign saying to keep 1.5 meters from the person behind you and the person ahead of you, stuff like that.
Everyone just walk around saying "Zurückbleib bitte," just like they say on the U-Bahn before you get in.
Yeah, that's when the doors are closing.
Yeah. So stand back.
Yeah.
Well, since today is a day of celebration, we're celebrating the anniversary, Violator, all that good stuff. Let's keep the good vibes going. And I'd like each of you to tell me one thing really positive that happened this year. I mean, there was a lot of crappy stuff, but there's also been good stuff. I know there has been. So Cristian, what's one good thing that's happened in this past year?
Well, the main good thing is that I was able to rediscover the outdoors and go out pretty much every weekend. And the second, that is the big Depeche Mode book that is behind me. I was thrilled that Anton finally released his infamous book in 2 versions. It was really something I've been expecting for years.
Oh, you have been expecting. Really? Did it meet your?
Yeah, I have it. It certainly meet my expectations, except for the price. But well, after all, it's here, and I can enjoy it It's really a true photographic celebration, not only related to Depeche Mode, but also to Anton's motifs. Now you can see them in 500 plus pages, big size. It was really something that I enjoyed, in particular last year.
Great. Liz, what is a great thing that's happened this past year?
Other than being alive, I mean, it's an interesting question because, I was thinking while Daniel was talking about all the things we missed out on. Like, we didn't get to go to Cleveland for the Rock Hall of Fame, celebration. We were all supposed to meet up in, Cristian, what was that, in Dresden?
Yes, plus Berlin for DMK's mini tour.
Yeah, so that didn't happen. Well, that was going to be in August. So there was like a point last year where I just had like a list of like all of the Depeche Mode related things that I was supposed to get to do, or just like personal things I was supposed to do. It was so long that hadn't happened. Like, who else here like missed the Pet Shop Boys tour? You know, like doing all that sort of stuff. But I have to say the absolute, you know, other than like just my, you know, immediate family and friends being, you know, safe and healthy and alive, like the best thing that happened to me was I actually managed to go to France. So for 5 weeks. So
5 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow, which part?
Around Metz area. So yeah. And then a little bit of time closer, maybe like 30 minutes south of Dijon. So it took basically like wrapping myself in bubble wrap and, you know, taking like a gazillion tests, and I had to fly to London first and then take the train. And I got there like 2 days before like that got shut down. So I really lucked out because I had moved up my departure date just for the heck of it. So. Yeah.
Oh. And what was the highlights of France for you?
Well, my boyfriend lives there, so that was the highlight.
He is a highlight, yes, okay.
He was the best highlight. So I didn't really care about seeing anything else or any you know, whatever that. But we did go to we went hiking. There's like some castles that are sort of close to the German border. And actually, at one point when we were walking, we crossed over the border. But was it like Fleckenstein and then Lowenstein Castle, which are like from like the 12th and 13th centuries. So that was super cool. And it was nice too, because I love the time that we spent in Germany for the film and the concert, and just, you know, have such love for the German fans. And, you know, it was nice just to feel even like a little bit closer to everybody in that regard. So
very nice. Daniel, what was the highlight of your year?
Yeah, like you said, being alive. Pet Shop Boys concert got postponed again. I did get to travel, yes, twice. I had 2 brief moments. One of them was to Portugal, before Portugal became hotspot again. And also to Brazil. I got to visit my family there, but I had to cut the trip short.
Oh.
I had to do like a million tests, and to calculate the time of the test with the time of the trip. And I had to anticipate my return, or else I was risking getting stuck there because KLM was threatening not even to fly anymore from Brazil to Europe. So I had to rush back. It wasn't my most ideal trip there, but at least I got to do it.
Nice. So Daniel, you sent me some questions actually to ask everybody. And you wanted me to ask what everyone thought of the hotel where you stayed in Berlin. Is there some secret you want to share about this hotel? I don't know why that was like such a big deal to ask that question. Anybody?
it had cool lights in the hallway. That was pretty neat. So I remember that. And also
plus taking the elevator was an experience itself.
Yes. Why is that?
The elevator was surrounded in video walls, and whenever you were taking a trip up and down, there were scrolling image with motifs from Zoologischer Garten, then even some David Bowie motifs, and it was really like an artistic experience just traveling up and down with the elevator.
Oh, very nice.
Plus, on top, it was the famous Monkey Bar where Martin also celebrated his birthday party on the 24th.
Yeah, but that was before you got there, right?
Yeah, but yes, it was before we were accommodated there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And Daniel, you stayed there even though you live in Berlin. You got to go across town and hang out over there.
Yeah, they said, well, you're not getting a plane ticket to Berlin, but you get to stay in the hotel, especially because it can be better for logistics if everyone's together.
And since Spirits in the Forest, we're going to go back a little bit further, open it up more than just the last year. Since the movie came out, what's been your favorite Depeche Mode related moment? Cristian?
Well, I think I I took this question earlier. It was not necessarily Depeche Mode related, but the book release, the Anton's book, was the highlight for me.
Okay.
Plus their lovely chat they had at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame online event when there were the three of them joking around each other. I really enjoyed that. It was so long time ago since we saw them like that, like in the good mood, chatting, playing jokes, and so on. I really enjoyed that part a lot.
Yeah, it was a nice little behind the scenes moment. It felt like you got to see an insider's view of what it's like to actually be in the band. That's probably, I'm wondering if that's what they're like in the studio, or if there's like, it's a little more tense, or if that's, really like their personalities came out, and that was kind of fun. Liz, what was your favorite Depeche Mode related moment?
Just over like the past few years.
Yeah, since the
I mean, these chats have been pretty awesome. Like, it's always just nice to like say hi. And I mean, I got to give like a shout out to Rob for having the patience to organize all this and just, be able to bring people together in this way. I remember like the first few ones, it was just such a like sweet experience, just, when you felt so separate and isolated from people. And, I always tell people like Depeche Mode fans are like no other fans, which was why I would always be totally fine, like taking my sons when they were 7 and 9 years old to the Depeche Mode convention here in LA, because I knew they would be safe and they would be loved and everyone would watch out for them and take good care of them and all of that. And so I think that piece of just being able to like see everyone's faces and connect with everybody, when I've been able to get on, like it's been huge to be able to do that and just have a reminder of it actually was interesting. I don't know if you all saw that piece in The Guardian where the guy was like talking about like he found out he wasn't like, basically it was like he found out he wasn't a real Depeche Mode fan. He went to like a convention or something and then was like, what the heck is wrong with these people? And he thought that being a fan was just about like collecting stuff. And I was like, nah, dude, that's not real. I mean, we, some of us really love to collect things, but that's not what it's about. Like, it's really like a connection in like your heart and your soul. And it's like a family. God, I feel a little emotional about it because I just miss being able to be around other fans and, talk with people about the music and the things that we like. I was never the kind of fan who like could tell you like, and here's the kind of synthesizer that Alan used on this, I don't know all that stuff, and I don't really, that's not my jam. Like, I don't really know, but I can tell you about the experience of hearing Ultra for the first time. Or I can tell you exactly where I was when I saw, the Strangelove video for the first time and how it made me feel. It's the emotion of it. So there's that piece of it. But I would say that having the clips from Spirits be included in the Rock Hall of Fame thing in that video, I didn't know that was happening, and I was like, oh snap! I'm like 6 degrees of Depeche Mode separation from Charlize Theron now. Like, how did this happen? So that was pretty sweet. So that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have been pretty amazing to be part of the whole Rock Hall of Fame. I mean, it really stinks that the actual live thing was canceled because I know a lot of us were planning on meeting up there. We had tickets and that would have been amazing. And of course, it just feels like they finally got into the Rock Hall and it's the year the pandemic happened, since the year they're not going to do, the only year they've never done a live concert. And it's the one year I was planning on going to the Rock Hall and it gets canceled. So it's, there've been so many crazy things like that happening this year, but I mean, the one good thing, I mean, thanks to Rob, I mean, this community, this worldwide community, I mean, I've met people I've never would have met otherwise. And, you know, I've stayed in touch with people that, you know, on other sides of the planet that I may not have talked with as much because, you know, I would have been out doing things in the real world. So in that way, I'm happy. I think it's a good thing that the pandemic happened, in only that sense that I've made those connections. I mean, I want to get back to real life, but I mean, I have to look at the positive things that came out of it. And this group is one of them. I've met so many wonderful people who have allowed me to, they've played guinea pig for me, like getting to be like on the Jeopardy games for me. Thank you for playing along and, you know, doing my bidding. And I had so much fun with that. So yeah, so thank you for that. Daniel, what is your favorite Depeche Mode moment from the past year?
Over the course of the past year, my favorite Depeche Mode moment would be Martin's new EP, The Third Chimpanzee. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of liked it too. It was a really interesting kind of ambience that they had to. It was so different than his previous stuff. It was,
yeah. One thing that I loved, and I know that's not actually how it's supposed to be played, but the B side is in 33 RPMs and the A side is 45. But I love playing the B side, the song Vervet, on 45 RPM. It sounds much cooler. It sounds really like a good dance track. It could have been a great Depeche Mode track, actually, to play it faster.
Maybe they need to release that. Maybe that'll be the remix as it's played at faster speed.
45 RPM remix.
Have any of you learned to do anything new during the pandemic, like besides making banana bread? Like, have you used this time to expand your horizons in any way? Daniel?
Actually, I've bought a little sewing machine, and this week I actually bought a hot glue gun. So I don't know, I'm gonna start doing stuff around the house. I'm becoming an old lady sewing
What project? What have you
stuff.
made with the glue gun and the sewing machine? Is there anything like? Are you bedazzling things? Like, what do you have going on? Like, do you have a new outfit?
No, actually, small one. Those that look like a stapler, actually, that you take with you on a trip or something. Every time Philip asks me to fix something, I'm the one who knows how to sew at least a little. And I always tell them I'm not very good at it, so there's no guarantee this is going to hold much longer. And then I'm surprised when it does. So I bought it's just a little small one, but now I want to make small repairs or sew stuff up. And I bought that. It's so silly, but you know, when it comes to having time to do stuff, at least keep myself busy with that.
Well, are you going to like make some new outfits for Bismarck?
Yeah, you know, he enjoyed your shoes, but I don't think he enjoyed wearing anything else.
Berlin winter.
Yeah, in the beginning he was so like weird, like what do I do with this? But yeah, then he got used to it. But I don't think he needs anything. He's got his coat, which is good enough for winter. So yeah, I could do a little skirt for him, a tutu.
Liz, have you learned to do anything during the pandemic?
Trying to think. Well, I mean, I took a short story class and wrote a horror story. That was fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
like
it a story, a long story? What is it?
It's maybe like 15 pages, and I'm sort of thinking about turning it into a novel, actually. And I've never written horror stuff, but I always can think of like super scary stories and, you know, all that sort of thing. But yeah, it was just sort of, it was interesting. Just, it was like based partially about like the history of, so my dad is the Irish American and my mom is the African American in my family. And in my mom's family, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, grew up around a place called Ashburn, Georgia. And her father was like a pretty successful, like owned like a little general store that the Black community there could shop at and whatnot. And basically what happened was that Klan members burned his business down and burned their house down. And they had to hide in swamps for a few days. And then their church got together some money, some funds, and sent them north to Chicago area. And she was 11 when this happened. And then her dad died only a couple weeks after they got to Chicago because he had gotten pneumonia while they were hiding. And so that was the end of school for her, or anything like that. And so she had to go to work, and she had younger sisters and things like that. So it was really, I think, a really challenging sort of piece. But yeah, so I wrote sort of like it's a little bit of like a horror story that sort of like jumps off from that happening. And because I'm always interested in, like, people I love like ghost stories and the supernatural, but as we know, and we see in our world, like the real horrors are the ones that are perpetrated by actually people, so so it's sort of like joining the two of those things. So I did that, and then the other thing I'll show you, my other obsession is doing these things.
Those have a name?
Yeah. So I buy new plants every year around the first day of spring. So this was my latest thing. So I just got like the individual succulents in the pot, and then it's very relaxing. I highly recommend it if you don't know how to do these, like, hook it up. So somebody needs to make like Depeche Mode themed planters for us. So
we'll be on it. Someone's on it. I'm sure right now they're already working on it.
Yeah.
They're going to add it to Redbubble right away.
Yeah. And I see someone saying that somebody needs a counter article, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because I was like, how did this guy get to be the person writing for The Guardian about this? Like, dude, no, you don't understand it. Like,
yeah, that's, yeah.
No.
I had a question for you about this horror story. By the way, there's so many different horror story contests you can enter. There's one that I entered last year, or I was going to, and I didn't finish the story in time. I should actually revise what I just said. But I still need to finish it because I had a nightmare one time, and I ended up writing the nightmare out into a short story. And it's one of those things that still gives me the chills when I think about like the nightmare. Because when you wake up from a nightmare and it still feels real, and you walk around the beginning of the day like everything's like freaking out. But I'd love to talk to you about it. And I'd love to read it. I'd love to read your story. I think that would be great. And Cristian, aside from honing your photography skills, what else have you been learning anything new or doing anything different?
Well, I tried to fix some things around my house, but that was a complete failure. But the only thing I can bring on the table that I finally, short background story, me and my brother have a little project. We are fixing some old cars from the 70s. And before the pandemics, I was always the third unit. I was only in charge to dropping him to the garage, getting him pizzas and coffees and water. And during this period, I was given the delicate S1 screw to use to do some real stuff there. So I was really proud. I'm a completely non-technical person. Whatever I try to do with my hands, it ends up broken. So I was quite happy that finally on the last car project we are doing, I was able myself to do some stuff other than bringing pizzas and coffees and Coke. So that's it for me.
Just being an Uber Eats driver for them?
Well, yeah. Go by car, go by foot. As long as the technical team is happy, I am happy.
Have you had any, I know there's a lot of quarantine questions here, but that has been pretty much all consuming in our lives the past year. But have you had any epiphanies due to quarantine, and like have a change in lifestyle, like any change in like your life priorities? Like, has any of this made you change your outlook on things in any way? Liz, do you want to start?
Any epiphanies? I mean, it's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about, I think just given everything that happened in the U.S. Over the past, year in terms of racism. I mean, we just had, for example, the murder of the people in Atlanta, from the Asian American community there. We had, of course, the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and um, all of the uprisings after that. And I mean, that was a really weird thing to have a citywide curfew go down here in LA in that regard. But I've been thinking a lot about what is our responsibility as individuals. Like, what are the things that we can do in our individual lives to change these things? And then what is our responsibility to our community? How do we show up in our workplaces? Because, and I know sometimes people think, well, Depeche Mode is about music. It's not about these other things, and that's political. But this is Depeche Mode again is about the embracing of people who are seen as outsiders and who are not accepted in other places and who are oftentimes othered, and I think that for me, that's why I always felt such a sense of belonging in the Depeche Mode community, because it was my community. And so I've been thinking a lot about, like, what are the ways that I show up to really demonstrate love and unity and justice for people, and like what actually needs to happen in our world so that we don't have these kinds of things happening, not just in the US, but every place, so that people can actually like just live and be able to not be afraid for their lives no matter where they are. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've been thinking about over this time. I mean, there was a point in June when the protests after George Floyd's murder were happening, where there was like, I mean, they basically, like, I look out my window and there were like police cars. It was like maybe like 10 of them, and they're out there with like guns and whatnot. And that's the kind of stuff that I think none of us really anticipated was going to happen in this past year. And we know that if we don't change these things, then we'll just continue to have these kinds of things happening over and over and over again. And
Yeah. I'm almost afraid to come out of quarantine because I'm like, well, the world's not going to be the same as we left it. It's going to be different. And what's going to be different about it? I mean, it's a little scary to think about some of the ways it's probably going to, I mean, I was asked to go to lunch with somebody for next week, and I'm like, I haven't been in a restaurant in a year. Like, I don't know if I can even do that right now. Like, I need some time to kind of, I want my vaccination and all that. And just how are people going to be behaving towards each other? And just how are they, once the masks come off, literally and figuratively, what's it going to be like out there? And I think that it's kind of got me a little nervous about what, people just don't care anymore. They don't care how they hurt other people. And I think that's awful. And it frightens me what the world is going to become, or what it is already.
I think the thing I think about, though, is like, that's where I think about, okay, like, what are the conversations that I have with people? Like, what are the ways that I show up and show love to people? And how do I model things in my personal life? Because I'm a former teacher, and one of the things I would always talk to my students when I was teaching in Compton was about not being bystanders, and how, like, so much of, like, if you see someone who is being, even like the very subtle things that people say, or like they say as like a joke or whatever, like, do we have the courage to stand up and say no? Like, hey, like, don't do that, because what is that saying that, like, if it's, they're doing the thing to the person in the morning, it'll be you in the afternoon. Like that's for sure true. But I think, like, even if I'm never I grew up with this in a way, like, for example, like in the Black community, and that is true for a lot of communities. There's a lot of skin color privilege where it's like if you're lighter skin, you get treated better because and people who are darker skin get called a lot of names and told they're ugly and like all this sort of stuff. And so one of the things that very early on in my life I consciously chose to do was to put a stop to that. Like anytime someone was like, oh, but you're pretty because you're lighter skinned or your hair is, a little bit straighter or whatever. Like I put a stop to that and really made sure to advocate for and encourage and support my cousins or friends who were darker skinned in that way. So I think like each of us have to just figure out, and I see somebody said it's World Against Racism Day today. So hey, like, but I think like that, and then I think just like the hopefulness, and recognizing that no one else can do this but us. Like people thought, oh, everything's going to change after like Biden gets elected. Well, no, everything won't change after Biden gets elected if we don't all step up and do our part, So, yeah.
Definitely.
You can tell the things I care about, like Depeche Mode and like this issues. Like these are my things, like this is like what I care about more than anything in the world, because you just see all of the suffering that happens because of divisions that are completely man-made. And I think in the future, or when the aliens come, they'll be like, what the heck is y'all doing? Like, what is going on? So.
Yeah. And I feel like in the Depeche Mode community, it's pretty open. I met very few people who were kind of closed-minded or conservative, which is why I thought it was so funny when I don't remember who it was, that alt-right guy said that Depeche Mode is the official band of the alt-right. And it was like one of the few times that Depeche Mode actually like responded to something. They're like, no, have you ever listened to our music? I mean, it was kind of, people are people right there is very much like anti-alt-right, so like there is, overlap there. What was that?
Richard Spencer is a clown. Although I will say it was interesting. So at the after party in Berlin that we went to, which was, what was that place? I can't remember.
The one on top of that tower, right? The second day, the last day, I mean.
Yes, that party.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how it was called.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, these German folks over here giving the LA people a run for the money with the like, oh, the sun is coming up and everyone's still dancing. Like, what is going down? But there was an experience I had where it was just talking to like a fan who came up and said hi and whatnot. And I asked him if he'd ever been to LA. And he said one time, and I said, oh, cool. He said, well, I went to the Depeche Mode convention. And I said, oh, neat. He's like, yeah, I didn't like it. I said, why? He said, because there were so many Mexicans there. And I was like, oh, heck no. No. And I said, well,
you pretty much turned the back and left, as far as I remember.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, this conversation's done. I was like, that's not acceptable to say that, like, and I was like, the Mexican American community in Los Angeles, like, has kept the spirit of Depeche Mode alive, and Morrissey and a whole bunch of other, so keep it real. Like, it was really offensive. And, and I thought it was interesting that he thought it was okay to say that,
yeah, that's really surprising to me in some ways, like that anyone out, even within the community or outside the community would say something like that. That just, I don't get it. Cristian, have you had any revelations this year?
Well, one actually. I discovered through my trips and with all lockdowns and everything that sometimes beauty and serenity can be found closer to home than one expects. Because before that, everybody was in a rush to travel towards the end of the world to see this, to see that. And it's always the idea that beauty is somewhere far away. And I learned the last year that is not. It just takes the right time and the right eyes to see it, and it is very close to home, actually.
That's true. That's pretty much the whole last few lines of The Wizard of Oz. That's right there.
Exactly, yeah.
My heart's desire, again, I won't go for any further than my own backyard. I think that's what Dorothy says. And I'm sure you've got some great photos from this past year of nearby, just, beauty. I mean, the pictures you had in the forest the other day, wow, they're just stunning. I mean, are you going to put out a coffee table book? I mean, come on.
I have my some two photographic projects that I'm working for years now, and as soon as I consider that I have a body of work that is at least consistent, I will try to print a blurb book or something, like not a zillion copies because I don't think, but to put out something with friends, for friends. So yeah, I'm contemplating that, but I don't think that any of my projects is yet mature to take it out in the world. And the King series is closed now. I don't want to start reworking on that. It is good as it is.
Oh, it's great. I loved it. I mean, I think everyone loved it. Seeing it in the film, it was, I know a lot of people have said that that was one of the highlights of the film for them because it was just so much fun to watch you. You're great.
It was
Daniel, have you had
also
any
my surprise that made it there.
Well, it's great. I love it. I love everyone doesn't, if anyone doesn't know this, Cristian has a website where a lot of his photography is. Cristian, do you want to share that in the chat so people can find it?
Well, it's either on my Instagram my Instagram is my name with a dot in between, but I also have a little arena, let's say, where I host some of the projects that I consider worthy. It's wfn.qa. If anybody wants to pay a visit, or if not, on my Instagram, it's the photography that I selected, and on my Facebook, the silly stuff that I do day by day using the phone.
Very nice. Daniel, did you have any epiphanies or revelations? Did I just wake you up? I'm sorry.
It's not that late there, Daniel. Come on. If I could get up here in LA.
Almost 60. No, it's actually looking at Christian's website now that he mentioned it. Because I already follow him on Instagram. I never noticed the website. Any revelations this year? Yeah, that we can live with a lot less materially. Okay. Not being able to go very far and staying together for too long. It could be like cabin fever for some people. I can't even understand if it's cabin fever for everyone. But yeah, it also, I think it brought me together, even with those that are not here. It brought me together with, their love and that very much. And yeah, not needing material things to be happy. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I would say. It may sound like silly because, well, it's just 1 year, and but it's by far probably the most disrupting event in our society since, I don't know, the last war. Even the end of the Cold War wasn't that so disruptive on people's lives like this.
Well, I have some questions from some people in the audience and who have sent me stuff over the last few days. From Uvia, and this is for everyone, even though Cristian apparently ducked out to go.
Well, I can hear you.
Oh, first,
I can hear you.
wow, he's on his voice. Wow, look at that. Okay, yeah, we can hear him. Like, that's just kind of funny to see out there. I just want to let everybody know Indra was going to come as well, but she had just got the vaccine and she says she's running a fever. So she apologized beforehand that she was unable to make it. So we all wish her well, hope she gets better. I'm glad she got the vaccine. Yuvia has a question for everybody, all of you. Since we all have great taste in music, obviously, what other bands are you listening to now that you would recommend to us? Liz, do you have any right now?
I listen to, well, I mean, Molchat Doma. I like them a lot. If folks don't, they're a Russian band. I listen to them a lot. I've been listening to a lot of Hertz lately. I also listen to a lot of house music and just dance music as a whole. So there's the Housework playlist on Spotify, which is in constant repeat for me. Like I love that. And then I have a playlist I made too of just my favorite songs from like Depeche Mode, Pet Shop Boys, and New Order, and some Smiths, Morrissey things that I find myself listening to that, and then just lately also a lot of Sade, of course. I also listen to if you guys ever subscribe to Sirius, there's a channel on there called The Groove, which is basically like 80s like funk and like that sort of thing. So that kind of stuff is really fun, like SOS Band, all that sort of stuff. That also I listen to that. But I think as far as like new, and I listen to a lot of Grimes. So I love her stuff. I think she's super talented, and
Great. Maybe we should start a Spotify playlist, and we can all add our favorite new things to it. We can all get an idea of what everyone else is listening to and find some new music. Because I know that I'm so lazy that I just rely on whatever Spotify says. Hey, here's your daily mix. I'm like, yeah, and it turns out to be stuff I've listened to 1,000 times already. So I'd like to find some new stuff now.
Does anyone else?
And actually, this conversation.
Yeah. Does anyone else listen to Molchat Doma? I mean, it's interesting. Like, they very much. I mean, I love hearing like bands that are new, that they're like so clearly influenced by like bands like Depeche Mode or New Order or things like that. You can hear it in the melodies and in the songs and just the way that they sing. They're almost like doing like I think they bite Joy Division a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Interesting. Okay. And I do have a request from Rob. So I don't know if you are familiar, but during the drinking chats, we usually have a word where if someone says it, everyone has to drink. So do one of you want to pick a word? Like maybe it's violator. Let's not use the word the, because this is a long day ahead of us. And there's probably like 8 hours of programming you got here, Rob. Are you starting your own channel? I don't know what's going on. But just like, let's pick a word that everyone would have to raise a glass and drink to. And no one has a word they want to choose? Do we just go? I mean, is violator going to be good enough? What was that, Daniel?
No, that's
just
me.
say the word. All of us have the glasses ready.
No, I was asking you guys to choose a word.
You guys get to pick a word.
Oh.
Violator.
All right.
Violator?
Violator.
Okay.
That...
Okay.
I was going to say we all should have some spirit.
Well, I only have water right now because I still have to drive today, but I'm there with you in spirit, and I'll catch up with later. Cristian, what music are you listening to?
Well, I've been listening a couple of days ago. I rewatched a movie that is very dear to me, Searching for Sugar Man. So the next day I was listening to Sixto Rodriguez on repeat. He's the main character of this film. It's a very sweet and lovely story. I recommend everybody to give it a try. And second, it's another soundtrack of a movie of the Coen brothers called Inside Llewyn Davis. I've been listening to that on repeat like forever. It's like glimpse in the American folk life pre-Bob Dylan. So it's again a lovely story, and I think Oscar Isaac is giving the performance of his life, and the soundtrack is just awesome. So I've been listening to those on repeat the last couple of days, plus a taste of the XX. I love those guys a lot. I never have enough of them.
Daniel, any new music you've been listening to? Any bands you want to recommend?
What I've been listening to besides the 1330, actually, Blacklight Odyssey just released an EP. I don't know. I know the name is not exactly new, but they've remixed Cassús quite a few times. Chris the Great, if I'm not mistaken, he was on the Takeover as well, and he is one half of Blacklight Odyssey, and they just released an EP which has a cover of breathing film. I know that's too much of a small, but it, it's one of those um, names that I love getting to discover through the festival. Um, I've also been listening to a lot, and this is, I know this is already old to think that this is old, but DJ Shadow and Uncle and those great 90s hip hop releases. What else? Um, and I actually went hunting for some CDs with also late 90s remixes of Peter Hauhofer, that's Club 69, yeah. But then I could only find on CD, so even though they cost like €1 now, um, I could not find them digitally to download, so I went after the CD. That's what I've been listening to.
Great. So we have some other questions from people who have sent me questions over the past week. Yuri, he wants to know whether the Spirits Project affected your life in any way, shape, or form. Aside from the obvious, were there any, how did it affect your life? Cristian, did it affect you in any way?
I wouldn't say so. I was more than happy that, of course, to be part of the project. That's like a dream of the lifetime. When I was seeing the first one, 101, first I never thought they would do a similar project again, and second that would get to be a part of it. But so I would say that it was more like an internal joy and happiness that I got to be part of this project. Plus, it got me also let's say, a second benefit. It got me the occasion to interact with lots of people related to music, to photography, design, and stuff like that. But other than that, I wouldn't say so.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I also got to meet lots of people, especially here in Germany. I went to the vet one day and she recognized me on the supermarket. The cashier recognized me and stuff. Yeah, things like that. Um, and yeah, feeling of extreme um, gratitude for being chosen to be part of the Depeche Mode canon in such a way that I never thought the band would turn to me one day uh, when it was always the other way around, you know, the relationship. Like, I admire what they do, and now it's time for them to have a look on my life. And that was, it's still unimaginable to think it happened. But what has it changed ever since? Not much, really. But yeah, like I said, I mean, lots of friends, especially here in Germany. Um, if it was for the lockdown, I would probably have met even more people because sometimes they come here to Berlin and they want to walk around, sightseeing, and they invite me to go with them, stuff like that.
Liz, how about you?
How my life has changed because of the film. I mean, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's two main ways. I mean, one, I think just being forever connected with Cristian, Daniel, Corinne, Indra, Dickon, you know, Emila and Corbin, like that's just priceless. I love them so much. It's a wonderful thing. We're like a little family, and you know, talk about all sorts of things happening in our life when we get a chance, not just, you know, related to the band, like we really are connected. But I think the other biggest thing that happened to me was just, I think finding love. Because of that, I met my boyfriend because of the film. So that was really nice and unexpected. So
That's unexpected. That's a nice bonus.
yeah. So yeah.
Very nice. We did have a question earlier. Someone sent me earlier in the chat. They wanted to know if you guys were at the Hansa party. I'm going to assume that was the Hansa party between the two Waldbühne concerts. And I know I was there with Daniel. I have pictures of me and him there. And I know I met you there, Liz, at least briefly. Cristian, were you there?
Yeah, I have a picture of it.
Yeah. In fact, it was a bit of a challenge because Deacon and the kids didn't have tickets, and nor did Liz, as far as I remember correctly.
You got me the
So
ticket.
had to rely on my good friends Marcus and Andy to find some tickets. The party was sold out weeks ago. So yeah, we were all there. Karin was there as well. I think Indra was too tired because of her flight and didn't want to join us. But other than that, all of us were there.
That party was
not in the dance room. I couldn't resist there more than one song because it was like a sauna. But other than that, yeah, we were hanging around there. It was cool party.
Yeah, it's a great place. I mean, they recorded 3 albums there. One of them was not Violator, but I mean, there were 3 albums that were recorded at Hansa. And yes, I did just say Violator twice. So everyone drink up. But yes, there were 3 albums that were recorded there. It was a great place. I mean, Bowie wrote Heroes there. I've sat in the window where he wrote the album. It's just, it's such an amazing place. That's like my Mecca. That's like my religious site. I've been there so many times now that they don't even charge me for the tour. The guy's just like, oh, you again? He's actually asked me a few times, do you want to give the tour now? I'm like, not in German, no, nein. No. Yes, so everybody was there. It was a great party. If you have never been to Hansa, you got to go. It's amazing. I'm pretty sure I dragged you via there at least once. I've pretty much, if you visited me in Berlin, I've taken you to Hansa. It's kind of a thing I had to do. In hindsight, this is also from Yuri. In hindsight, is there something about the film you wish had been portrayed in another way? Liz?
Something I wish had been portrayed in a different way. I mean, it was interesting. I don't know. I've talked about this before, but not so much. I think the film is what it is. Like, I can't say like, oh, I wish that something had been different or whatever. I mean, I think that there's a lot that they shot for all of us that then didn't make it to the final film, or like a lot of things that we talked about or wasn't seen that I think didn't. But I don't know, like the part where we shot in Griffith Park, that was pure hell. I'll just say that. And it was because I overslept. We had like a really early call time. It was like 5 a.m. or something like that because they wanted to catch the sunrise, but I was like, we're not going to have a sunrise. There's a weather phenomenon in Southern California called June gloom, and we shot that the very last day. I think it was like June 30th and July 1st that we filmed it. And so I was like, yeah, no, there's going to be cloud cover. You're not going to actually get like a really good sunrise, but whatever. So I had been so stressed. I should have like hired like someone to come clean, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to be here in my place. Let me clean. And then they were like, we want you to wear a green shirt. And I was like, what? Like, we want you to be like running in a green shirt. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So I was like out at Target, hunting for like a green shirt that didn't look completely like whack to wear on film, because I didn't have any green, but they had this whole like, oh, it'll look so cool, like with like the the mountains and all of the brush and things like that. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I didn't fall asleep until like almost 3 a.m. and then overslept. I didn't even hear my alarm, but then I heard my phone buzzing, and it was basically like the guy being like, where are you? And I was just like, oh my God, like. And so I literally just like threw on some clothes and ran out of the house. And I also did not know, because it was like, I think Pascal came over, and then who else came over? It was only 2 people that came over to check the lighting, and I didn't really know what was happening or whatever. So I showed up, and it was just this huge crew of people, and I hadn't had any coffee, had not eaten breakfast, like nothing. And I was just like, oh my God, like I did not really get. So sometimes I'm just like, like I wish I had changed that about like just my level of like thinking about it or whatever. I was so just distracted because there was like just lots of stuff going on in my personal life at that point in time that I just was not even like really focus on. I was super stressed just as a whole. So, but I don't know. So sometimes when I see that, I'm just like, I look like hot garbage on like screen because I'm just like, oh my God. But I think we all feel that way maybe sometimes when we see ourselves. So
Well, you were just you were running. I mean, how are you supposed to look gorgeous when you're running? I mean, who looks gorgeous when they're running?
no, but you know, like it's just those things like where you
Good afternoon. I am Kelly Mavies and I coordinate the Oral History Initiative.
what's that? I don't know. Oral history edition. But yeah, I mean it's just like how like you don't want to, you know, obviously you're not going running. And also I had really like jacked up my Achilles, like it almost like popped it basically. And so I had been in a boot for part of like the, you know, the time before that. So I hadn't even really like been running a lot. So they went to like a super hilly section of Griffith Park, backed a truck down this incline with the camera on the back of it. And then they were like, run up this. And I'm just like, are you kidding? Like, it's like 6 a.m. I haven't had breakfast, no coffee. Like, and I was like, okay, like this is going to be interesting. So, and then to see like that they basically they made me run up and down that incline like 25 times. Okay, we were up there filming me running for like 4 hours, and then when I saw the film and it was like this much time, I was just like,
yeah,
okay, all right.
Do you know run? Are you a runner?
I had run before I got sick, before I got cancer, I had run 8 marathons, and I was a mentor for my running club actually, so for a pace group. So I actually thought at one point I was delusional and was like, oh, I can like keep running and like go through chemotherapy, and it didn't work. And so I ran 1 marathon after going through cancer treatment, but the way that the chemotherapy sort of affected my like tendons and things like that, it's I don't know, it was really like bad basically. Like I can't, if I run longer now, then I'd like to do a 10th marathon, but if I run more than like 5 miles regularly, it starts to hurt. So I don't know.
Because they also made Daniel run a buttload. And I was there the days they were filming him running underneath the U-Bahn, and it was like one of the hottest days in Germany, like all summer. And they had him going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I felt so bad for the poor guy. Yeah. Yeah, they had the camera rickshaw, so they didn't have to run and keep up with you. So that was kind of rude. But Daniel, what kind of things what did you think of the way the film came out? Was there something else you would have liked done differently? I mean, I know that they shot that video of you in the workout room. They had to go find the workout room, and then that didn't even make the cut, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I agree with Liz. If it were up to me to choose what scenes to put and what to leave out, I think I wouldn't be the best person to make that decision. Maybe the film would be a little bit more boring. It would only make sense to me or something like that. So in a way, I'm glad the way they did it. I'm glad that actually the only scene I suggested made it, which was the one with the fans outside of the Waldbühne. The entire running day, we spent an entire day running everywhere. We also started doing like 7 takes of me just running back and forth in that little 50-meter tunnel that you see. Then we ran more in Kreuzberg. There was a point when they just said, just run, just run after the rickshaw and don't stare at the camera. But they didn't say how much, for how long that would be. So they just started and I had to run after the rickshaw until they said stop, which I didn't know when it would be. And then there was the part where you arrived and I was running under the U-Bahn. And that was also like 4 or 5 times. This time, and it was even worse because you were across the street. I could not hear any commands or anything. So if they had said, okay, stop, I would have continued running. But I think one of the most incredible things that we shot that did not make it, and has to do with running, was at the end of the day, they came up with this incredible idea of filming in a they didn't get any gym to allow us to film in there, so they got the partner, the sister hotel to the one where they were staying. They got they got me and the producer to go into the workout room, and it just so happened that the workout room was on the corner of the building, and it was the windows were just glass, so they were filming from across the street while I was running inside the hotel. This was already almost at midnight. This was one of the last things we did on the first day. It was so exhausting, especially for the first day, and it didn't make it. But of the running, I wish they would have put some of the stuff that we filmed on the last day, which was mostly me and my dog, was just walking around here on the park. I think only the scenes we did in my apartment, which were the interviews and me talking with my parents and everything, all of that was that they used, but the external ones from the last day, I think they didn't use anything. Also, whatever Anton shot of us on the day of the show itself, I think he only used a little bit of chicken, and that was it. Yeah, and the camera on our faces, of course.
Well, and if anybody wants to see any of the behind the scenes photos, and also I did a video with Daniel last year. Was it last year? God, it might have been like 2 years ago. It feels like forever now. Time is like a world. I can't even think it's hard for me to even know what date it is sometimes with this whole quarantine thing. But on my website, jennarobbins.com, I have video that I did of an interview with Daniel, the transcription, and then there's a bunch of behind the scenes pictures of the camera rickshaw that we like to talk about, and him running under, I think I videoed him running underneath the U-Bahn. And I think there's probably some pictures of Bismarck too, from when he was a puppy, when I was still living in Berlin. So if you want to take a look at that. Cristian, what about you? Were there any ways like you were portrayed in the film, or scenes that were missing that you wish had made it?
Well, it's only, as Liz said, whoever will do the editing will have a different opinion on how the film would look like. So that's like an endless talk. This is Anton's vision, and it is what it is. We should all respect it. But there is one particular bit, I'm sorry, they included just a couple of seconds when I'm driving my white rabbit on some mountain roads. The whole scenery was beautiful. They installed a red light in the car in order to have some red shadows on me. I had a big speaker that was playing Black Celebration and Nothing. And I was driving on those narrow mountain roads, and there was a pickup truck right in front of me that had an overhang camera. But the brake lights were ducted in order for that light not to be in the shot. So they were asking me to come as close as possible. But on the other hand, we were kind of speeding, and I had no idea when those guys would brake. So I was kind of scared not to damage the car, but said, okay, it's a Depeche Mode movie, it is worth it. Luckily, it ended well. But unluckily, there are only a couple of seconds literally in the movie with a white Golf on some mountain road. It was beautiful. The sun was setting behind me. It was a beautiful scenery. That's the only thing I can think of now.
Yeah, the scenery was gorgeous in your shots. I mean, you take such great scenic photographic shots. I mean, I loved all the stuff you took in Siberia, the ice caves and all that stuff. I remember my mom loves following all my friends and everybody on Facebook. So she follows you now, I think. And I remember her looking at one of your photos, and she actually audibly gasped. She was like, like that. Oh my God, that's beautiful. So you very impressive work there. And I know that we're the 1 hour now, and
sorry, just one mention, since we are talking about the Spirits cinematography, I recommend everybody to have a look at Jeremy Snell's work. He's an incredibly talented cinematographer, but also photographer. He has also one photo book, but his Instagram account, he has his own way of taking photos. And if anybody is passionate into image photography, I highly recommend to follow him, or at least to have a look. Jeremy Snell.
Thank you.
He's the director of cinematography for Spirits.
Rob, if you can find that account and share it, that would be great. I'd love to see it.
Daniel
Oh,
did it
Jenna-
already, but also on Instagram.
I know that we've gone over the hour. I promised you guys it would be. So if you want, and we don't have that much more time before we have to move on to Rob's next time slot because he's got his own TV channel programming going on here now. Can you guys go like maybe like 10 minutes longer, or are you getting tired? How do you feel?
Sure. Christian,
Thumbs
what
up, thumbs in.
are you using these days?
Sorry?
What kind of camera are you using these days? What's your go-to camera?
Well, I went digital these days. I have Hasselblad, the Swedish camera, and well, I grew old and I'm lazy to process my own films and stuff, so I'm shooting more digital these days.
That's practical. It's probably hard to get a hold of some of the old chemicals, and film is expensive.
Well, working the film has its beauty. It requires you to take a certain approach, a more meditative one, to contemplate the shots, to prepare them better, to take the proper steps when taking a photo, measure light, set up the camera, and so on. And I enjoy very much this way of taking photography, because when you are digital, you can shoot like 2,000 photos. It's no problem. You can select, edit, whatever. But on film, it's always a matter of limited supplies that refuse to stretch.
Yeah, I know that feeling. It was so freeing getting a digital camera when I switched from film to digital. I took photography classes too at Santa Monica College, and I loved it there. They had one of the best photo labs on the West Coast. I think it's the second best after the school in Santa Barbara. And I just loved actually the smell of Fixer. And I just thought it was great, like just going in the lab. And I loved using the enlargers and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. But there was something very freeing about getting a digital camera when I got my first SLR. And so I understand what you're saying though, like you contemplate the shots so much more when you have a limited amount of film. So it's definitely a different way of approaching the medium. And I'm sure we can ask if you are going to be on later. Brian Griffin's going to be on, the photographer for
Yeah,
Depeche.
I'm very looking forward. He's well, my door is closed behind me, but I have his prints. I got them, I think, 5-6 years ago. And I was also lucky when I collected one of the prints to have lunch with him in London. It was a very enjoyable experience. We didn't speak anything about Depeche Mode, just about photography. And it was really one of my best days having that hour with Brian. I thank him very much.
Yeah, you should. Have you ever sent him any of your photos?
Well, I showed them couple, but I never want to abuse his time to look at this, look at that. Sometimes we are interacting on Facebook, even on his photos or mine, not so many times, but I'm always happy when this happens.
Yes, definitely. Liz, I have another question from Yuvia here specifically for you. She's a mom. She and I were talking last night, and since she's a mom, she wanted to know specifically how your boys are doing and what they thought of the film.
It's interesting. They thought, I went with my youngest son. We went to see it together in downtown LA with a bunch of friends. And then my oldest son was in Chicago. He goes to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, so he was there actually when it came out, and he went to see it with my friend Daphne and her family. She went to pick him up, and she's one of my oldest friends, and so that was nice. And she's essentially like his auntie, so that was really nice to see that. But I think the thing here in LA. That was interesting about it was that then they liked it. They thought it was cool. And then the next day, I think was it the next day or maybe a couple of days after, I can't remember, there was the Depeche Mode convention here in LA, and we went to it and he came to it with me. And that was the first time I think that like some people, like there were folks who were like grabbing his arm and being like, kind of trying to drag him to pictures because they're like, hey, you're the kid that was in the movie. And so that was a little bit like weird. And he was super sweet about it or whatnot. But I think again, like I always just tell people, like we're literally just people. Like we don't hang out with the band on a regular basis. Like I don't have Martin on like, FaceTime every day. Like, what's up, dude? How's that EP going? Like it's not like that. We're literally just regular fans who are just like anybody else. And so yeah, I mean, he really liked it. I think they both really liked it. So
Did they find it weird seeing their mom being the center of attention on the screen?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think again, like the piece of just when we were filming, I mean, it was a really challenging time for our family, because I was going through a really difficult divorce. Like they were sort of like, they're teenagers who are just being teenagery, and having a hard time with different things. And, if you've ever gone through like your family breaking up or been, a kid who's experiencing that at that age, I think it's really, really tough. So it was just such a strange thing that then you've got like a film crew around you. And I can remember like at one point, Pascal Gutierrez, he was talking to them and just was just so sweet and like understanding with them because they were just having like a hard time with some things. So yeah, I mean, I think that, but I think also too, like all they knew like their whole lives was like me listening to Depeche Mode and it was their very first concert that they ever went to. It was like one of the shows from, what was it? I think Delta Machine tour. That I surprised them with tickets with to the show. Like we had gone down to Staples Center and I told them my best friend was going to come and pick them up down there. And they were all like, this isn't fair. How come we can't go to the show? And I was like, because no one's spending money to like pay for you to see Depeche Mode. Like, not like, and then they were like, well, where is she? And I was like, okay, actually, and I remember like they got like, so I videotaped it. Like they got so emotional and were in shock and had like little tears in their eyes and just couldn't believe it. And then went inside and they were like, ew, he took his shirt off. Ew, that's disgusting. Talking about Dave, like, that was pretty funny. But I think the thing that they, again, just talking about fans and like how special Depeche Mode fans were, is there were, there's a lot of us fans here in LA who are really, really close and, see each other and pre-pandemic as much as we could. And, they all came over to say hi to them and all of that. And they like loved that because they like meeting the other fans and hi. So.
And your son is still back from college in Chicago and with you now. Yeah.
He's still here. Hopefully they'll get to go back in the fall, again.
Yeah, hopefully things will be back to somewhat normal in the fall for everyone.
Yeah.
So Cristian, I see you have a new jacket on. Do you want to do a little fashion show for us and explain what it is?
Well, actually, I will leave this task to Rob since he was the instigator.
Rob tends to instigate, yes.
Yeah,
I
he has this tendency.
I did instigate that. Let me see if I could break this out. Hold on, if it works. For those of you that know, it's an Alan Wilder fanboy alert. So Cristian is wearing an actual jacket of Alan's that he got in the auction that Alan had. What was it, 2010 or 2011, I think?
2011, I think.
Oh yeah, okay, that's what it was. Yeah, so if you want to model that for us, Cristian, that's an awesome piece, by the way.
Well, that would be my best modeling pose. I wouldn't dare to stand up, especially since Alan wasn't so kind to give me also the complete zipper for the jacket, so it's broken. I guess I should have bid more to get the full package. But yeah, it's one of the things I got from that auction. I remember it was more or less similar like now. All my Depeche Mode friends were online, some of them with 2 internet connection. Everybody was having different strategy on what items to bid and so on. That was a cool experience. And I got the jacket and well, actually I was lucky to get a real big 101 poster, the one with all 4 of them with Alan's signature. It's like 2 meters long, well, not 2 meters, 1.5, something like. It's really big, and it's hanging on the other wall. But yeah, I also got this jacket that I never wore outside. Actually, no, I wore it once in Hamburg at one of the Masses parties.
Did anyone recognize it?
Well, one of my friends who asked me to bring it, and she was waiting for me to show up on a leather jacket, so she recognized it, but it was more an educated guess. On that letter I got from auction, he says it's his later period with Depeche, so I imagine it's 93, something like that. I'm not that passionate about Depeche forensics, so I never bothered to search a photo of him wearing the jacket, but it doesn't really matter. It's from him and it's here.
That would be kind of cool, though, a framed picture of him wearing it and then a framed picture of you wearing it, like next to each other.
I promise I will do my homework and take this photo in my Violator t-shirt.
Very cool. Very cool. You know, that auction, I bought a few things too, but it was...
Yeah, I saw your postcard the other day, right?
Oh yeah, I have a couple. I got a couple of the Christmas cards, and then Alan's gold record. But the time frame, it was horrible for me because it was live in the UK. But I think I had to get up at like 4 a.m. or something to bid on the things I wanted. It was crazy, but I'm sure the time was very accommodating for you if it was terrible for me. So.
For me, it was like noon or something. It was very convenient.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It was probably a good time.
But unfortunately, my biggest aim was to get a drum set. I bid like crazy for that, but eventually somebody from Switzerland got it. Of course, I cannot compete against the Swiss finances, so it never made it here.
Yeah, even recently he had like some cymbals that he was selling in drumsticks, and I would tell you my bid of $700 for a cymbal and a drumstick did not get accepted. So
I bid €800 for one, and I got rejected.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, wow. What's crazier is that I paid less for Martin Gore's synthesizer behind me than the cymbals and the drumstick sold for. So that's way crazy, but
that's really ridiculous. What would you guys say, Cristian, Daniel, Liz? What's your most prized Depeche Mode possession?
This.
This what, Daniel?
I was giving Liz a chance. Ladies first.
Okay. What's that, Liz?
So this is for my takeover day. When we went to the old location of Amoeba Records, which is now, no longer at that location in Hollywood, and over, I can't remember where the new location is going to be, but they met me outside on the corner and of Sunset and I think Ivar, and said, we're going to go inside and you're going to have to, pick your favorite Depeche Mode album. And I was like, okay. And they're like, and then we're going to go down the street and the band is there and they're going to sign it for you. And so that was when I basically thought I was either going to vomit or pass out or both simultaneously. And so I had this moment where I was like, okay, like, am I going to pick, Music for the Masses, or am I going to pick Ultra? It's sort of like a toss up there for me. But I went with Music for the Masses because that really was just, it's my longtime love. So, if you've ever seen like the footage of that, it was interesting because we went over then to the studio where they were rehearsing, and they had to put me in a room for a little bit because they thought I was going to like basically like pass out, like actually, or like something was going to happen. So they sort of had me in a little holding pen to calm me down. And initially the band was all going to like come at once and like surprise me, but they couldn't do that. So I sort of met them one by one. So I met Dave first and talked to him, and then he signed it. Then Fletch, and I actually gave Fletch a hug, which I think freaked him out because he's not really in the footage of it because he just sort of like ran away at that point. And then Martin signed it for me. So it was really sweet. And then they were just like, you know, they're like, see that chair there in the middle? There was like a little, you know, small chair sort of like in the space. And they're like, you're going to go sit in that chair. We're going to play for you. So that was pretty cool.
You know, I just connected the dots, Liz, that I always thought you were the #1 fan in the LA market during that pre-sale thing that they had, the promotion.
No.
But it was because you were the takeoveree that day that you got to get because you went in first before all of us, that you got to hear a song by yourself, right?
Yeah, I was there for, I think, 3 songs. And it was a very weird thing because I can't even remember what they played first, but I remember Dave had this very cheeky sort of thing. He like says they stopped playing and they were like, he's like, how was that? And I was like, that was great. And he's like,
that was surreal as it was with like 40 people. I can't imagine like you just being the only person in the room, how awesome that was. But
yeah, I was in there, Brat was in there. And then at one point, Dave Grohl was apparently like had come and stood next to my chair, but I had no idea that he was in there because Foo Fighters was rehearsing in the space as well. So all of their equipment was in the back and everything. So, and then I actually tripped into Taylor Hawkins on my way out because I had left my bag in the back and then went through the things, and there was sort of like I could see a guy with like long blonde hair and a trucker hat was like walking a little bit in front of me, and there was like a bump in the rug because of cords being underneath it. So I tripped over it and fell into him, and then he was like, "Oh, hey, are you okay?" And I was just like, "Oh shit, it's Taylor Hawkins. Like, what's up, dude?" So yeah.
I was so wrapped up I didn't even notice if the whole Foo Fighters band is there. I had no idea, and I mean the only person I did notice was Adam Bravin from She Wants Revenge, but
yeah, Adam's cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get him on here one of these days too. So his music, good music, so it'd be great to have him on. We're approaching that time where Brian Griffin is going to be joining us, so I definitely want to bring him on to introduce. I don't know what happened to Christian.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Oh, okay. You know what? You dropped off, but
yeah, my connection was bad, so I switched on the phone's connection.
Okay, now you're back in the spotlight for me. Okay, good. Glad you're still here.
I got bored of our conversation.
But I will also take the chance to say hello to Brian and to thank him once again for his wonderful prints.
There he is. Hey, Brian, you're muted right now. Go ahead. Can you unmute yourself?
Muting myself. Am I muted now?
Yeah, you're unmuted now. Yes.
Hi, Brian.
Welcome, Brian.
Hiya, Christian. Good to see you once again. You've been over to see me, haven't you, as well? More than once.
Yeah, 2 times actually. It was we had 2 great lunches. I thank you very much for those.
Time, didn't we? Fish and chips. Yeah, it was good to see you. Thank you for your support as well, Christian. I really appreciate it. Thank you. But as my book's coming out next, I get deliveries of my book next week. I mean, Christian, I think you bought one.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, and I got it.
Bought one. Yeah, it's next week. It comes out, my biography, and I'm going to be mailing them out myself. So you have to have some patience. There's quite a few books to mail out, but there's only 750 copies. You know, it's a limited edition. So it'll become quite rare, you know, if you get it. 750 in the world, you know, it's 50 billion people or something, isn't there, in the world? So only a few. Yeah, it's good times, exciting times. For anybody who lives in London or in England, I have an exhibition in 2 weeks' time. I'll give you all the information through Vaughan. Vaughan will have all the information about it. So with some Depeche Mode work on the walls, some old posters of Depeche Mode, a few things really, some postcards of Depeche Mode. Some people have bought the postcards, I know, around of Depeche Mode fans. So yeah, that's in London. It's going to be in a wonderful gallery, fantastic space in Islington in London. Anybody who knows London, it's in Islington, and I'll be there every day at the show because it's only for 2 weeks, so I'll be in there signing books or whatever to meet people. Yeah, so I'm doing quite a bit at the moment, and yeah, hello everyone. Hello.
Hello, Brian. Thank you very much
Brian.
for joining us. And
It's my pleasure, Rob, and welcome everyone to Rob's gathering here today. Should I say your gathering? But it's not really, is it? It's everyone's gathering.
Right. It's no longer just my gathering. This is all about all of us, and it's been huge for all of you to be a part of this. And yeah, it's no longer my group. It's everybody's group, and I'm so thankful to all of you for being part of this. And it's just amazing to what it's grown to think from, we were starting this last year on this exact day, thinking, in our lockdown that we could at least like go hang out with some friends and talk about Depeche Mode, like if we're in a pub or something. And look at where we are today, where we're having all of you amazing people join us together from around the world, and to get to know all of you, like Jenna had mentioned earlier. We're so busy in our normal lives that we kind of get wrapped up in that, and we don't get to meet people beyond what we see in our everyday life. But now we have a whole new community of friends and family that are well beyond what I could have ever expected. So again, thank you. And I'm going to say Violator. So that's our drinking word right now. So cheers.
I want to thank everyone for coming, for Cristian and Daniel and Liz giving their time today. Liz getting up so early, Daniel and Cristian staying up so late over there in Europe. But thank you for coming and talking with us all. And I also, before, I want to let you guys go, you've given so much time. I just want to say thank you to Rob for making all of this happen. I mean, seriously, he's kept us entertained the last year. We've made great connections with people. We've met wonderful people like Brian Griffin. I mean, it's just been such an amazing year that would not have happened if it had not been for Rob. So let's all just give it up for him for a minute there.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Such a wonderful question asker, Jenna. You did a great job. So
actually, yeah, absolutely, Jenna. And with
some people had some reservations about coming. I never want you guys to feel like this is going to be like we're going to bombard you with personal questions and ask you like pretend like I'm Howard Stern or something like that. This is a safe space. This is we're a family. We're so I want you all to always feel welcome coming and to always feel like you're in a safe place.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenna, for hosting the questions, and again for the amazing Jeopardy tournament that was a huge part of our pandemic experience as well. That was I actually went through and I was doing a video kind of all the highlights of the year, and it's terrible because I'm already over at an hour with the highlights, and I'm still only in January, so I didn't even finish it. But it's just amazing, and thank you, Liz and Daniel and Cristian, for joining us as well. You are definitely, especially hearing the things you say, it just you're great representatives of the Depeche Mode family and community. So I'm very proud to have you on, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Jenna. I will just take a moment to say hi to Elgran from Mexico. I met him in front of Hansa Studio, actually in Berlin. Just wanted to say hi to him and to tell him that I still have the pins he gave us back then. So
Elgran,
thank you, everybody, and I can't wait to hear Brian's stories.
Elgran, why don't you turn on your camera and your microphone real quick and say hello to Cristian, and also you have a question for Brian, so go ahead and I'll let you ask it if you'd like, if you're available to turn on your camera. And actually, when I was reviewing the the footage, Elgrin is one of the ones who was the most excited for our visit with Gareth Jones. So that was pretty endearing to me on the video when I was going through that.
Yes. Thank you so much. So I can talk because I'm working, but thanks, Cristian. I'm listening all the things you say. So thanks again. And I'm still here just writing.
Okay, I'll ask his question for him to Brian then as well. So Brian, he was asking about if the book is for sale in America.
No, not at the moment. It's just for sale from me at home, really, in London.
So basically, you can get it, but you just have to order it through you.
You can go. You can pay for it by PayPal on my website, which is in the shop there. It's briangriffin.co.uk, and it's in the shop on my site. You can get it there. That's the only place in the world you can get it at the moment. And I think it probably will remain that way, but who knows? I've sold more than half of them already. I've only got, well, probably quite a few, you think. I think I've got 350 copies left of my book. Because, as you know, it was on Kickstarter. I was very, very well, I was really chuffed how much money I got, to publish it. It's at the printers and binders at the moment. It's printed immaculately. It's a hardback. And you've got one coming over to America, Rob, in a couple of weeks, and Cristian has, and probably some others have on the site at the moment. And I've got some little gifts to put in there for everyone. So yeah, thank you for supporting me. Sorry, I haven't got a distributor in America. I haven't got a distributor anywhere, actually, because I don't want one, really. I want to do it myself.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's I think the only challenge is the cost of shipping, but it's all good.
But, the cost of shipping these days, as you probably know, Rob, and Vaughan knows, it's a lot of money to send things all over the world, With this COVID stuff happening, it's extraordinary amount of money. It costs about, it's 30 English pounds, 20 to 30 English pounds to get across to America, to the US.
Speaking of Vaughn George, hello, Vaughn, welcome.
Hi, Rob.
So Vaughn will be performing for us later, and also he's helping co-host as well as Atusa, who's now here as well. So
hi.
So thank you both for and all of you. Jenna, you're welcome to stick around and co-host as well with us, and of course Daniel and Liz and Cristian. Absolutely hope you're able to continue with us as well.
I have to sign off, but I'm going to sign back on later. I just have to go drive over to my brother's house, so this way I can actually start drinking and catch up to you guys.
Okay, perfect.
But I want to thank everybody. And Brian, I don't know if you heard us, if your ears were ringing earlier, but we were talking about you with Cristian, because we were talking about all the different photography and everything that both of you guys are doing. He was just talking about how much he, admired your work and how great you were when he met you. But you'll probably get to see that one in the recording, what he was saying. But it was so then you just popped on. It was like we summoned you. It was like we said Beetlejuice, and there you were. So,
yeah, I was giving a prize actually at a big photo festival in England at about 20 past, our time, 20 past 5. So I didn't think I could make it, and it just went straight to here at 5:30. And is there anyone from England actually on at the moment on the site? No. Nobody from England, apart from Vaughan and myself.
A few.
There's a few people on, yes. Yeah.
Lee is English, but I think, Lee, you live in Austin, Texas now?
Yeah, that's correct. I crossed the pond 11 years ago now. But yeah, East London, born and bred.
Very good, Lee. Very good. Well done. Vaughan and I are both in the East End, yeah.
I know. I've seen your videos with the... all about the album covers and everything. So I'm pretty up to date with you guys and where you're from and everything that you've put out. So thank you very much.
I think I'll get, ask Vaughan if he, hi Vaughan, ask you, maybe we should make a little film about in the exhibition, because there's some original Depeche Mode prints there and original posters. I've got a poster for sale there of the first poster. When I did A Broken Frame, I actually made a poster about a month later. So it goes back to 1983, the poster, or something like that.